This man is not an Egyptian pharaoh but the world's oldest mutant, Apocalypse. He lived in 3600 BCE, cruelly enslaving all mortals. No one knows how many years he has lived because every time his physical body begins to deteriorate, his four horsemen would find him a new body, thereby achieving immortality. And this time, it is a body with regenerative abilities. Through consciousness transfer, Apocalypse can not only gain the host's superpowers, but these abilities can also stack infinitely. Soon, the reincarnation ritual begins. The canvas at the top of the pyramid is pulled back. In the sunlight, the runes on the pyramid's peak are activated. Spreading upward mysteriously, Apocalypse's consciousness begins to transfer, and this is when he is most vulnerable. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the oppressed people start a coup. With 2 wooden stakes smashed, massive stones weighing tons topple, sliding down the passage toward the pyramid. Meanwhile, the soldiers inside the tower begin to act, trapping everyone inside the room. But Apocalypse's 4 horsemen are not easy to deal with. Horseman War simply claps his hands, turning the soldiers into skeletons. Horseman Famine manipulates flames, turning them into fire snakes that burn the remaining soldiers to charcoal. However, as the massive stones continue to destroy the supporting pillars, the entire pyramid starts to shake, scaring the slaves outside into fleeing for their lives. The interior also starts to tremble. A huge stone crashes towards Apocalypse but is caught by Horseman Pestilence. Unfortunately, the others are not so lucky. Seeing that Apocalypse's transfer is nearing its final stage, an assassin jumps out, ready to kill him, but is caught by Horseman Death using telekinesis, twisted into a pretzel, and smashed against the wall. At this moment, the massive stone in the passage reaches its end, destroying the pyramid's most crucial support pillar, crushing Horseman Famine to death. Horseman Death also falls downward along with Apocalypse. Horseman Death hurriedly uses telekinesis to transfer the prepared armor to Apocalypse's new body, but she crashes heavily onto the rubble. In her final moments, Horseman Death uses all her strength to protect Apocalypse, calmly facing her own death. Thousands of years have passed, and a group of followers who worship Apocalypse as a god have found this place. Sunlight bathes the pyramid peak before them, and the mysterious runes light up. After 1,000 years of slumber, Apocalypse awakens once more, finding himself trapped underground. He immediately begins to gather energy, leading to a massive explosion. Not long after, Apocalypse, cloaked, appears on the street. Realizing this is no longer the Egypt he once ruled, at this moment, a girl catches his attention. The girl's eyes turned white as she summoned a sandstorm. Then she took the opportunity to steal something from a vendor. This girl is the young Storm, but before long, the vendor blocks her path. As the vendor threatens Storm, Apocalypse suddenly appears. However, the vendor threatens Apocalypse with a small knife. Unexpectedly, with just a raise of his hand, the sand slices through the vendor's companions like blades. Then, Apocalypse uses his powers again, and the vendor is consumed by the wall behind him, leaving only a terrified face. Subsequently, Storm leads Apocalypse to her hideout. Apocalypse is drawn to the television in the room, and as he reaches out to touch it, countless images flash before his eyes. In just a few seconds, he understands the changes over these thousands of years and realizes the world is now ruled by ordinary people. Apocalypse is deeply displeased by this and resolves to cleanse the entire earth. The first step is to reassemble his 4 horsemen. Apocalypse reaches out and lifts Storm's chin, instantly unlocking her potential, making her his first horseman. Next, they seek out Psylocke, a mutant who can turn her thoughts into weapons. With just a thought, Apocalypse makes Psylocke's psychic blade grow 10 times in size. Introduced by Psylocke, they find the 3rd mutant, Angel. However, one of Angel's wings is currently broken. However, Apocalypse not only transformed Angel's wings into a metallic form, but the feathers could also be launched as blades. The 4th knight that Apocalypse chose was the famous Magneto. A furnace burning at thousands of degrees unexpectedly falls, and in a critical moment, a man swiftly acts, suspending the furnace in mid-air. This man is the incognito Magneto. He looks around at the odd stares of his co-workers, knowing he can't stay here any longer, and immediately heads home to prepare to flee with his wife and daughter. However, when they go to find their daughter, they discover her room is empty. They rush out to search for her and eventually come upon a small grove where they see their daughter being held by a group of police officers. The police have discovered Magneto's identity. For his daughter's safety, Magneto voluntarily surrenders. However, upon seeing her father being captured, the daughter, in her agitation, awakens her superpowers, summoning countless birds to attack them. In the chaos, an officer accidentally releases an arrow that strikes both the mother and daughter precisely. Magneto rushes forward, clutching the bodies of his wife and daughter, weeping bitterly. After the sorrow and despair comes intense anger. He removes his daughter's necklace and with a single gesture, none of the police officers are spared. The blood-stained necklace flies back to Magneto's hand, seemingly foretelling that his hands will be bloodied once again. As expected, he returns to the factory, and with a thought, all the doors of the factory shut. He will not let anyone there escape. Just as Magneto was about to act, a purple portal opens behind him. Magneto turns to see Apocalypse and his 3 horsemen. However, Magneto doesn't care about Apocalypse's identity. He warns them not to interfere. Unexpectedly, Apocalypse's eyes turn white. With this meeting, Magneto no longer resists Apocalypse's invitation.
Come and see.
They travel through the portal to a concentration camp, the place where Magneto's powers first awakened. Painful childhood memories flashed before his eyes, completely changing Magneto's mindset. Taking advantage of this, Apocalypse guides Magneto to tap into his true potential. Soon, tiny pieces of metal gather under Magneto's command, followed by a torrent of metal surging forth. With a furious roar, Magneto completely destroys the place. While Magneto was unleashing his potential, Mystique arrived at Professor X's school. She learned that Magneto's wife and daughter were killed and that the scene was littered with the bodies of police officers. Knowing that humans would not let Magneto go, she sought Professor Charles Xavier's help. Understanding the urgency, Charles decided to act. He put on the Cerebro helmet and instantly sensed all the mutants on Earth, quickly locating Magneto. But Magneto's heart was already consumed by hatred, declaring that humans had taken everything from him, and now he would make them pay in blood. At that moment, Apocalypse suddenly turned to Magneto. As if sensing Charles's presence, Apocalypse immediately used his power to invade Charles's mind. The formidable mental abilities of Charles amazed Apocalypse. Using Charles's powers, he linked to soldiers guarding nuclear missiles worldwide, manipulating them to turn the launch keys. Countless nuclear missiles soared into the sky, terrifying everyone. In a critical moment, Charles broke free from the control and regained his senses. He immediately ordered the destruction of Cerebro. Havoc instantly released his energy, with a thick laser beam destroying the entire apparatus. As a result, Charles fell into a coma, and everyone quickly moved to evacuate him. However, just as they exited the room, Apocalypse and his 4 horsemen arrived. Magneto was the first to act, directly abducting Charles. Then Apocalypse opened another portal, and Havoc tried to stop them but inadvertently hit the engine in the room behind the portal with his laser. This triggered a massive explosion. In this critical moment, time suddenly seemed to slow down. A man appeared outside the school. He had only come to find Charles, but instead stumbled upon the explosion. He casually peeled away metal debris. After saving everyone, Quicksilver noticed a girl upstairs. He ran across the shattered floorboards and carried her to safety. Next was the library. While moving people out, Quicksilver also rescued a girl's pet goldfish. Then, Quicksilver went to the bathroom and gave a boy a cool hairstyle. Finally, he headed to the classroom to save more people. Seeing a couple on the balcony, Quicksilver instinctively pouted and threw them off the balcony. He then went to a bedroom, wrapped a boy in a blanket, and tossed him out the window. Sliding into the hallway, he tore down 2 curtains and tied them to 2 trees outside, then started throwing students out the window. Finally, Quicksilver grabbed 2 panicked students, kicked over a table, and used it to fly out the window with them. He looks like he's on the verge of a frantic tryst, but it's just a basic operation for Quicksilver. As time resumed, students either fell into the water or were caught by the bedsheets, apart from Cyclops' brother Havoc, who tragically died due to being too close to the explosion. Everyone else was saved by Quicksilver. At that moment, a helicopter approached. They thought it was medical rescue, but it turned out to be Stryker. Taking advantage of their unpreparedness, Stryker ordered his men to open fire, using shockwaves to knock everyone unconscious, then capturing Mystique and her group. Meanwhile, Cyclops and his 2 companions, hiding at a distance, escaped unharmed. They quickly used Nightcrawler to teleport inside the plane. They intended to teleport and rescue everyone, but inside the plane was a special magnetic field that prevented Nightcrawler from teleporting and nullified Jean's mental abilities. The plane flew into a secret base, where Mystique and the others were imprisoned in a special jail. Stryker was preparing to interrogate them about Charles's whereabouts when suddenly, everyone heard Charles's voice. It was Apocalypse, controlling Charles, declaring war on all humanity. Unbeknownst to Apocalypse, Charles secretly told Jean his location. However, Jean was in trouble herself, as the people at the base had discovered her. In the chaos, they stumbled into a laboratory where Jean sensed a beast-like creature locked inside an iron box. At that moment, base soldiers kicked in the door. To evade capture, Jean used telekinesis to open the cell lock, triggering the base's alarm. A menacing man emerged from the cage. It was Wolverine. At this moment, Wolverine has been fully transformed and his memory wiped. The soldiers open fire as soon as they see him. Enraged, Wolverine immediately starts to retaliate. Due to the prolonged inhumane torture, Wolverine now resembles a true beast, rampaging through the base and killing all soldiers in his way. Wolverine's ferocity even scares Stryker into fleeing. Eventually, Wolverine leaves the base and disappears into the snow. However, the chaos he caused inadvertently helped Jean and the others, allowing them to successfully find Mystique and the others. Cyclops uses his laser to blast open the door, and they reunite. They immediately decide to rescue Charles. Meanwhile, Apocalypse plans to build a new pyramid to seize Charles's superpowers. As he activates his power, the entire city turns to dust in an instant. These particles swirl into a tornado, converging on a spot and constantly reassembling. When Apocalypse stops his power, a majestic pyramid stands tall amidst the ruins. Then Apocalypse forms a helmet from particles and gives it to Magneto. Just how powerful is Magneto? As he closes his eyes, he immediately senses the omnipresent magnetic fields. The building beneath him shatters, and the magnetic force extends deep underground, even affecting the ocean floor. Countless shipping containers on the cargo ships start flying under the magnetic force, scaring people into fleeing for their lives. Magneto's power is so immense that it affects the entire world. Humans realize that the Earth's magnetic field is changing. If Magneto is left unchecked, human civilization might regress to the Bronze Age. Amidst their desperation, the X-Men arrive in their jet in Cairo. Seeing the apocalyptic scene, they decide to split into two teams. Quicksilver and Mystique rush through the floating buildings to reach Magneto, but the magnetic field around Magneto is too strong. They can't penetrate the protective barrier. Mystique has to appeal to his emotions. She tells Magneto that his family is not just his wife and daughter, he also has Charles and Mystique.
You never had the chance to save your family before, but you do now.
Then, Mystique and Quicksilver prepare to return to the battlefield. Magneto, lost in thought, recalls his past with Charles, a tear unconsciously rolling down his cheek. Meanwhile, Charles is brought inside the pyramid. Apocalypse prepares to begin the possession ritual again. If he can gain Charles's abilities, he would control everyone in the world, becoming truly invincible. However, during the ritual, Nightcrawler teleports into the pyramid, searching for Charles. At this moment, he saw a shadow approaching on the wall. It was Angel coming to stop him. They engage in a fierce battle. Nightcrawler is forced to leave the pyramid, while his teammates also struggle in their fights. Beast is battling Psylocke. Seeing her blade unable to harm Beast, Psylocke transforms it into a whip and successfully wraps it around Beast's neck. Just as she is about to strangle him, Beast kicks and breaks free, then throws Psylocke onto a tall building. While they are locked in combat, the ritual involving Charles nears its conclusion. Not only does Charles lose all his hair, but his pupils also start to change. Fortunately, at this moment, Nightcrawler teleports to the rebar, temporarily escaping Angel. Next, Nightcrawler quickly finds Charles and uses his teleportation ability to rescue him. He then hurries to his battling teammates, teleporting them back to the plane one by one. They plan to retreat immediately, but Apocalypse's minions won't let them go easily. Psylocke and Angel team up to jump onto the plane, tearing a large hole in it. Jean instructs everyone to hold onto Nightcrawler. Then she uses telekinesis to push the lever, sending the plane plummeting toward the ground. At the last moment, Nightcrawler taps into his potential and teleports everyone away. Sensing danger, Psylocke lets go, while the jet, along with Angel inside, crashes to the ground. In mid-air, Psylocke quickly manifests a psychic blade. using the building walls to slow her descent. Though she survives, she falls unconscious. Meanwhile, inside the pyramid, Apocalypse awakens, realizing he hasn't acquired the mental abilities. He understands that Charles has been rescued. Apocalypse lets out a furious roar. He teleports out of the pyramid, seeing Angel's tragic corpse, and angrily curses him as useless. Then Apocalypse starts searching for Charles. Because the ritual linked their minds, Apocalypse knows Charles hasn't left. As he calls for Charles to show himself, everything suddenly seems to pause. It's Quicksilver using his super speed. Quicksilver punches Apocalypse, sending him flying, and before Apocalypse hits the ground, Quicksilver attacks again. Apocalypse's pupils start to tremble and turn white. In the next second, the ground sand wraps around Quicksilver's legs, trapping him in place. Quicksilver tries to resist, but Apocalypse twists his arm and then kicks his leg, breaking it. Apocalypse grabs Quicksilver by the hair, preparing to let Psylocke finish him off. Psylocke spins her blade but unexpectedly slashes at Apocalypse, who remains unaffected and grabs Psylocke by the throat. Apocalypse has super regenerative abilities. Psylocke, lifted by Apocalypse with one hand, loses her ability under the lack of oxygen, revealing her true form. It's Mystique. Apocalypse uses their lives to threaten Charles into showing himself. Just as Charles prepares to sacrifice himself, he suddenly remembers their minds are linked. At this point, he knows he has to take a chance. Charles directly invades Apocalypse's mind. In the real world, Apocalypse's brow furrows. In the next second, Charles floods Apocalypse's mind with all the pain felt by every mutant he sensed. The overwhelming information causes Apocalypse to roll his eyes back and release Mystique. But Charles's attack doesn't end there. He lands punch after punch on Apocalypse. However, Apocalypse quickly adjusts, catching Charles's fist. The situation reverses instantly. Apocalypse's form grows gigantic. He completely overpowers Charles, tossing him around like a doll. In the real world, Apocalypse senses Charles's location. With a wave of his hand, the outer walls of the building disintegrate. As he steps toward Charles's hiding place, two steel bars block his path. Everyone looks up in surprise to see Magneto intervening.
You'll betray me.
No. I betrayed them.
With a gesture from Magneto, surrounding metal rises and, under his control, attacks Apocalypse like two dragons, but Apocalypse activated his shield and continued to advance step by step. Beast seizes the moment and jumps down with Cyclops. Cyclops immediately unleashes his laser, joining forces with Magneto in the attack. After rescuing Quicksilver and Mystique, Beast plans to join the assault. However, Apocalypse simply waves his hand, sending Beast flying. He then strikes Cyclops, embedding him into the wall. Apocalypse doesn't even consider the attacking Magneto a threat. Meanwhile, in the mental realm, Charles is left with barely half his life. But Charles tells Apocalypse he's destined to lose. A portal suddenly opens in front of them, and Jean's figure appears in the mental realm. And the real-world Jean steps slowly towards Apocalypse with his feet in the void. Encouraged by Charles's words, Jean finally unleashes her full power. In the mental realm, Apocalypse is shattered by Jean, while in the real world, his armor is destroyed. Magneto seizes the opportunity and launches countless steel shards, severely wounding Apocalypse. On the other side, Cyclops, with Beast's help, broke free. He immediately took off his glasses, unleashing a high-energy laser attack. Apocalypse prepares to teleport away, but in the next second, countless bolts of lightning appear. Storm, one of the four horsemen, has betrayed him. Apocalypse shows an expression of despair and unwillingness. With Jean's renewed outburst, not even his super regenerative abilities can save Apocalypse. In the end, Jean turns Apocalypse to ashes. After this crisis, Magneto and Jean work to rebuild the school. However, Magneto has his own path to follow, and the two friends part ways again. Charles realizes the necessity of force and appoints Mystique as an instructor to train a new generation of X-Men to face future threats.